Well, it's the demand outlook that is really driving this. The demand outlook is being impacted by slowing global growth, slowdown in China, slowdown obviously in Europe as well. Lots of macroeconomic headwinds at SP Global Commodity Insights. We're now seeing demand growth below 2.2 million barrels a day for the year. It's going to be the first year since 2020 where you've actually seen demand growth shrink in Europe. So we're seeing globally 102.7 million barrels a day for the year. OPEC's moving quickly because they see this market shrinking before them.
A question about OPEC plus, because the plus is Russia, and I just find it somewhat counterintuitive that one of the reasons there is an energy shock in the world is because of the Russian war that is taking place, and yet they are also in a leading position to determine how much oil output is going out. Is this not incongruous in your view? And has Russia's position within OPEC plus changed?
I think OPEC's playing with fire. I think the geopolitics around this in the 20 odd years that I've covered OPEC are probably the most complicated that I've ever seen. Russia's position with OPEC, of course, is fraught in itself. The alliance is an alliance of former producing enemies in many ways. OPEC for many years pushed against Russia, which was pursuing a produce oil strategy. Now they've come into this alliance, and it's really driven a wedge between the core OPEC states, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, and key historical allies like the US and the West. The sheer presence of Alexander Novak in Vienna is controversial in itself, considering he's just been sanctioned over the weekend by the US. So this is a very difficult decision. They're clearly being driven by market fundamentals and this shrinking demand growth story that we're now starting to see transpire. But geopolitically, this is volatile, and I'm sure that that's going to make this meeting ever more complicated as it unfolds.
Oh, you can see how OPEC is in an incredibly difficult position, given they need Russia if they want to really control the market. Andy, let me ask you about the U.S. The Biden administration has released hundreds of millions of barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve over the past year. But soon the releases will end, and the administration is going to have to start refilling those reserves. What is the U.S. going to have to do to refill these reserves, and what impact is that going to have on oil markets?
It's going to have to pay a lot more money for those for refilling those reserves. I mean, our forecast at S&P Global Commodity Insights is for crude to trade at the upper levels of $80 a barrel towards the end of the year. Of course, there's a lot of geopolitics in that. We've seen, these sabotage events, whether it's to Nord Stream pipelines in the Baltic or indeed, this concern around drones that have been seen around the North Sea. We've had a lot of geopolitics around Middle East oil in the past, whether that's going all the way back to Abqaiq or it's just some of the more recent attacks which we've tracked. They've had dramatic impacts and spikes on oil prices in the short term.